Welcome to Solar Oregon's How to Go Solar and Storage workshop. My name is Nicole, and I'm a program manager at the nonprofit Solar Oregon. This is a reoccurring workshop that we've been delivering to home and business owners across our state for years. At Solar Oregon, we work to provide you as the customer with information you need to make good and informed decisions about solar energy and home battery storage. So thank you all for joining us today. We're going to be covering the basics of solar and storage, looking at how solar works. We'll also look at different components in the system. We'll learn about a process called net metering that allows you to get credit for energy you export to the electrical grid. And we'll also talk about incentives. We'll look at how you can connect with different solar contractors, and we'll also discuss the topic of battery energy storage. So you can see how a battery can allow you to use power when there is an outage. And then we'll wrap up with discussing ways that you can connect to contractors. And we'll have a Q&A session. So feel free to put any questions you have in the Q&A box as we go through this presentation. In the chat, we're going to be putting helpful links to different resources, and I'm just going to post some of those now. I'll be posting them throughout the presentation, and then we'll also send that when we send the recording of this workshop out to those who have registered. All of our recordings also get put on our YouTube channel. So if there is a workshop you missed, or if you're interested in checking out previous workshops, you can go to the Solar Oregon YouTube channel and check those out. And like I said, if you have any questions, just feel free to put those in the Q&A. And we'll be doing that Q&A session at the end of the presentation, and we'll just jump right into it. So background on Solar Oregon, if you haven't heard about us before, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have worked to encourage solar and storage adoption throughout Oregon since 1979. We do this by providing reliable and impartial consumer education like this solar workshop. We also do other workshops, like one on comparing solar quotes, and we're working on new curriculum that is going to be focusing on different ways you can finance your solar. So stay tuned for that. We also facilitate solar tours, zero energy showcases, expert panel discussions related to solar, and we have a few annual events such as our Solar Wine Tour and our Go Zero Tour. The Solar Wine Tour is in May, and our Go Zero Tour is in October. So keep an eye out for those if you're looking for in-person experiences. Great. Well, we also wanted to share that this workshop series is supported by Energy Trust of Oregon. Energy Trust is an independent nonprofit that was established in 2002, and they provide resources to help enable customers of investor-owned utilities in our state to use energy efficiently and gain access to renewable energy. And so they offer key incentives for solar and battery storage, as well as other energy efficiency incentives. And you can check that out on their website at energytrust.org. This diagram here shows some of the typical components in a solar system. It is demonstrating a grid-tied system. So before I jump into these components, a grid-tied system means you are still connected to the local utility. Off-grid would be you are not connected to the utility, and you're just connected to your solar. It's more common to see grid-tied solar in residential areas and metro areas. And so in this diagram, you can see the solar panels. Sometimes they might be labeled as photovoltaic or PV panels, and that collects the sunlight and makes a special type of electricity called DC electricity. Your home uses AC electricity though, so that DC electricity has to go through a special component called an inverter or microinverter that will convert the DC electricity to AC electricity. Then that AC electricity will flow to your electrical panel, and then where it can be accessed by appliances and outlets in your home. With net metering, you also will get a special utility meter called a bidirectional meter that measures the amount of electricity that you send out to the grid, because you are grid tied. So if you produce more electricity than you use, you can send that to the grid. And it also, this bidirectional meter will measure any electricity you pull from the grid when your solar might be producing less than your energy consumption. So this meter will record it, and then your energy bill will look a little bit different. It'll show these readings from the readings from the bidirectional meter, so you can see what you exported to the grid and any energy that you pulled from the grid. But overall, solar system is pretty simple with the panels being oftentimes installed on a roof. There is also ground mounting, and then being connected with those electrical panels and the inverters. Here's some photos of different types of inverters. The inverter on the left is a string inverter that would be connected to all of your panels, your array. And then microinverters are another option, which are usually mounted to the back of a panel, and there's usually connected to 1 or 3 panels. Both of these do work in Oregon. Your installer might specialize with a particular setup, or depending on what the needs of your system are, they might decide to use one over the other. It's just important to know that they both work. Sometimes inverters, microinverters can help if you're getting some shading on your array. So that is something to consider when you get a quote from a contractor, is what type of equipment is included. When you look to go solar, your electrical panel, if it's older, might need to be updated. So that's something that an installer will look at. And this can depend on your home size, what your energy consumption is. And as mentioned before, older homes may need electrical panel upgrades. And if you're thinking of adding a battery later or a charger for an electric vehicle, making sure that you're considering that in future planning is really helpful as you talk to a solar installer. So as we said, solar panels can be mounted either on your roof or as a ground mount. So this just demonstrates those options here. Roof mounts are more common in cities, but they both can work. The ground mounts can be more expensive since the panels still have to be connected to your building, and so it can increase the cost, so that's something to keep in mind. As mentioned earlier, when your solar system is producing excess electricity, it's exported to the grid where it can be utilized by other utility customers. Net metering is the process that allows you to account for this energy that you export so you can gain credit for it. So these 2 graphs here show examples of net metering, in a summer month versus a winter month. On the left, you can see that your solar would be producing more. You have more access to the sun in the summer. So that solar produced orange bar is larger. And so you might be producing more depending on your system size and your energy consumption than you need. And in that case, you could export that energy to the grid with net metering. And then you would have a net metering credit earned. So that's what that green arrow is demonstrating. In the winter months, there is less access to sun. So you might need to pull from the grid if you're still consuming a lot of energy. And maybe you don't have a battery, or if you have a battery, maybe you have used that and you need more electricity and you can draw from the grid when you're a grid tied system. This bill here demonstrates what that might look like. So you can see here that it'll show you the service period and what your meter reading is from that bidirectional meter at the start and end. In this example, this customer was producing more electricity than they consumed. So they were able to export to the grid 327 kilowatt hours. And because they produced more than they used, they didn't have any billable kilowatt hours. Your bill still will have a fee for interconnecting. So when you are grid tied, you still will pay a fee to interconnect, and that's looking about $18 a month. If you're a PGE customer, for example, and because you produced enough electricity, you're not getting billed for those billable kilowatt hours. You actually exported the extra electricity you produced to the grid, and that excess amount gets added to your year-to-date banked excess generation, which you can see highlighted here on this example. On months where you might need to draw from the grid, if you have banked excess generation, you would use that first. So it helps to offset those months that you might be producing less. Once you use your excess generation bank, then you would start to see those billable kilowatt hours. Or if you have a system that is undersized for your energy consumption, you still might see those billable kilowatt hours. So it's really important when you are looking to go solar, considering what the needs of your system are and what your energy consumption is. So that's what this slide is talking about. You want to consider how much energy you use, what space you have available. The average solar system size in Oregon is about 8 kilowatts. So you'll see it represented as KW. And this can vary depending on how big your home is. Do you have a lot of electric appliances? And so you can look at your energy bills when you connect with an installer. They also might want to look at your energy bills too to help plan. If you're thinking that you're going to do something like add an electric vehicle charger that is going to change how much electricity you consume, you would want to plan for that and let your installer know so that your system can account for that. The goal is to meet but not exceed your estimated annual consumption. If you produce way too much and more than you would need to pull from your year-to-date bank, you would kind of like not get a credit for that beyond, using it from what energy you draw from the grid. So you want to plan your system size accordingly to match your needs. And that also helps with the upfront costs. So if you aren't going to use all that electricity, but you install a giant system, that'll sit into your year-to-date bank. And if you're not using that all, it actually resets each year. So right now the net metering year runs from April through March. So anything that you don't use by the end of March would actually get donated to the grid to low-income customers. Which is good too, but it's good to plan your sizing so that you are paying for the amount of solar that you need and not oversizing too large. And your contractor can help you assess that. For solar, there are certain aspects of your home that may make it easier or harder to go solar. So we'll look at those. The first thing is solar access. So you need to have access to the sun. If your roof is completely shaded 100% of the time, that might not be the best location for solar. So finding a place that you get the access to the sun. Here in Oregon, the southern sky gets the most solar access, and roof planes that are east or west facing can work depending on how your property is orientated and what types of buildings and trees are shading those sides of your roof. But you usually will not see solar installed on the north, northwest, or northeast facing roof planes. So that is something to keep in mind. If your home is completely shaded, but you have some property that is in the sun, you could also consider ground mounting your system. So here's an example. So you might have beautiful trees that are providing other benefits to your home, but that don't make it great for going solar. But if you have access to land on your property that has more solar access, or if you have another building that is not shaded or has a roof that is suitable for solar, you can consider those as well. There's also another program called Community Solar, and I'll put the link for that into the chat again. And Community Solar is where you subscribe to a community solar project that is offsite, so it wouldn't be at your home. Oftentimes, they would be at larger projects, and you could subscribe to that by checking out those links for Community Solar. When you subscribe to that, you can see discounts in your bill, and you're also supporting solar energy still. So this can be a great option if you don't have a roof that is suitable for solar, if you have a lot of big trees that are shading your home or business. One of the biggest factors that can affect your ability to go solar is going to be your roof condition. It's recommended that you have at least 10 years of roof life because solar panels last around 25 years. So you want to have a roof that is going to match that, because if you install on an older roof, you would need to uninstall the solar when you need to replace the roof and then reinstall it, which can increase the cost. So it's recommended to have at least 10 plus years of roof life. If you have a really complex roof that's steep or has a lot of other structures on the roof, that could also make it challenging to go solar. There are certain codes that require where solar can be placed and what type of roof setbacks they have to have. So considering what type of roof you have can impact your solar. Solar is suitable on many different types of roofs. There's different types of ways the panels can be attached to the roofs and different roof types, such as metal roofs. And there's code requirements that these installations are required to follow. And so having a contractor assess your site is going to be helpful if you're at that phase where you're like, hey, I've already kind of gotten a lot of my main questions answered, but I really want to know for my site, like, is this good for solar? What's the production going to look like? You can connect with a contractor and we'll share resources for that. Again, to just actually be able to look at those site specifics and share some of those specific details about your home or business. Battery storage is another topic that is getting more and more momentum because, as we've seen here in our state, sometimes there are outages, sometimes there are outages that are longer. So folks are looking for a way to keep the lights on. And the ability to use power when the grid is down is called energy resilience. It's important to know that your solar system by itself does not allow you to use your solar electricity. To do this, you would need to add a battery that you would be charging with your solar and that you could access during an outage. Solar and battery storage are complementary technologies, and solar makes your battery more effective because it can recharge it, and your battery allows you to access that solar electricity that you've gotten from your solar when you need it, so you can store it for later. Uh, when considering adding a battery for resilience, it's important to think of what type of outage you're looking to endure. Power outages vary in their causes and frequency, as well as duration. Short outages might just be caused by wildlife getting into wires. Longer outages could be from natural disasters, as we've seen in our state. Sometimes there are power safety shutoffs during fire events where the fire risk is high. So considering what goals you have for your solar and sharing that in the planning phase is really going to be helpful as you navigate getting solar for your home or business. If you're looking to access your stored energy for a very long outage, you would need many batteries to do this. Also, you should consider like what types of batteries you want to use. Some installers might specialize in particular brands. Many brands have different capacity sizes. So an average size battery is anywhere from 10 to 14 kilowatt hours for one battery. And so you'll see that abbreviated kWh, and that is that battery capacity. Some folks will put multiple batteries together if they're looking for access to stored energy for a longer period, and that can get expensive. Batteries also do require space. If you are looking to back up your home, a whole home backup would require a lot of batteries. So it's important to set your expectations for what a battery can do and what it cannot do. There is an option called a partial backup, where you back up just a portion of your home. In this scenario, certain circuits in your home or business will receive power from the battery, but the rest of your home will lose power in an outage. So in this situation, oftentimes people will back up lights in a common room, some outlets, wherever their refrigerator is plugged in as well, so they don't lose food. Heating and cooling are going to be your highest energy draws, so don't have a hot tub party during an outage. If you can be more sparing with things that are big energy pools, that's helpful. And then when you get a partial home backup, the way you divide your sections into the sections that are backed up and sections that are not is based on the breakers in your electrical panel. So usually you'll get a second electrical panel called an essential loads panel. And you can see an example on the left. And in this essential loads panel, that would have those circuits that are connected to your battery. There are options now where you don't need to have two electrical panels. You can just upgrade your panel to a smart panel. And this also sometimes has an app where you can see more data about the different loads that you have. There's some flexibility with what you back up. So again, thinking about what goals you have for your system, there are some different options out there. As with much smart technology, the smart electrical panel is going to be more expensive. Battery system sizing entails a detailed conversation with your contractor, balancing your desired functionality with your budget. A way to think of this is a trade-off between two questions of what needs power and for how long. And as I shared, oftentimes refrigerators are backed up lights in a common area, and then a couple outlets that you can charge phones, laptops, and other personal electronics. So these questions can really help you think about what you would want backed up if you have solar plus storage. All right, now let's jump right into incentives. So Energy Trust of Oregon has a standard incentive for solar and for home battery storage. And it varies depending if you are a Portland PGE customer or if you are a Pacific Power customer. And so you can see it's a flat incentive for solar of $2,500 for both customers. And then the battery incentive does vary a little bit. And so you can see those numbers there. Something to keep in mind is that incentives do change and vary depending on policies, funding availability, and your utility provider. So if you see an incentive that works for you, just know that it could change. So if something does work for you for your home or your business, it's good to take advantage of it while it's there. Yeah, and we did see some of these incentives go up this year, so that's very exciting. But yes, if you see an incentive that works for you, you want to take advantage of it while it's there, just because policy and funding impact those, and they do change. There's also additional income qualified incentives that Energy Trust of Oregon provides, and it's called Solar Within Reach. You can scan the QR code here to learn more. There is a quick picture here that just shows the annual income maximum. So just for example, if your household size is 4 people, your annual income maximum would be $128,564,000. And if you want to learn more about it, feel free to scan. I'll also put those links again in the chat. And there is a link to Solar Within Reach as well. Financing your system can be common because the upfront cost of solar is expensive. There are some loans that are tailored to solar. So you can ask your bank or credit union who you already have a relationship with. That's a good place to start. Also, your installer may have a financing partner. As with any major financial decision, make sure that you are carefully assessing your financial options and reading through the contracts and understanding those terms before you sign. And then sometimes people will choose to lease their system, have like a third party ownership of it. And so for leases, make sure you understand the lease terms and how that is structured for payments. There also is a Smart E-Loan that offers solar financing for homeowners. And this is another option. So you can feel free to scan the QR code to learn more or check out those links that I posted in the chat. And this is available in PGE and Pacific Power territories. And then before we look at an example budget, just want to recap some reasons why solar costs might vary. Solar is highly customizable, so the system size and design can vary between homes and businesses, depending on what your needs of your system are and your energy consumption is. Roofing and electrical upgrades can impact the costs if you need to replace your roof because it's an old roof. That would impact your costs, or if you need to upgrade your electrical panel. And then if you want to pair solar with storage, it's good to let your contractor know that you're interested in that so they can account for it in the system design. Sometimes when you add storage later, components will need to be changed, moved, swapped out in order to accommodate that battery. So the the better you can plan for what you want your system to accomplish is going to help make that a smoother process, and impact those costs. Your access to incentives also can vary the cost of solar and storage. And then if you are a grid-tied system, you would also need to be connected to the utility provider that you have, and that's called interconnection. And so there is interconnection process and application, and that also has a cost. So here's an example budget for an 8 kilowatt solar system paired with a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery, and just showing just the solar. If you didn't do the battery, the estimate for 8 kilowatts is about 32,000. And again, this is just an estimate. This can vary depending on where your site specifics and your system design. So this is just an estimate to just help get some numbers out there. But to get detailed budget numbers, you would want someone to give you a quote for your specific home or business, and get at least 3 quotes so that you can compare your options. So for this middle column where it shows solar, estimating that it's $32,000 for your upfront cost. If you're able to access the Energy Trust Incentive, in this example, if you're a PGE customer, that would reduce your cost of your solar by $2,500. If you're getting solar plus storage, for this size system, you could, if you can access that incentive, you could decrease the cost of your system by $7,500. Also, there are those income qualified incentives that can help you save additional money on the upfront cost. So it's always good to see if you can qualify. And as we said, if you make changes to your system later or decide to add storage to a system that didn't plan for it, that can also impact your cost. All right, so you've heard some of the basics, but if you're interested in learning about what a quote will look like for your home, Energy Trust of Oregon has a Trade Ally network, where you can connect with a Trade Ally solar contractor who can create a quote, customized quote for your home. And so these Trade Ally contractors are rigorously vetted. They're approved to offer the Energy Trust incentives for PGE and Pacific Power territories, and they're familiar with the design and installation requirements. To connect with a Energy Trust Trade Ally, you can scan the code here or use the link in the chat to get a custom bid. And the form only takes about 3 to 5 minutes. We'll ask you what you're looking for, and we'll connect you with solar trade allies in your area. And again, we recommend comparing at least 3 quotes if you can. In some parts of our state, we have less solar installers. So for example, if you're on the coast or other rural parts of Oregon, there might be less installers available there, but we definitely recommend trying to get at least 3 quotes so that you can see what is the best system design and price for you and what you're looking to accomplish at your home or business. Once you've selected your contractor, you'll receive a quote, and then you'll get to review that. Once you approve and sign that contract, the next things you can expect are going to be the installation process. So your contractor will handle the permitting for installation and apply for the Energy Trust of Oregon incentives, if you are eligible for those. And then they will also help with interconnections as well. It's important to know that if you have already installed solar, your contractor does not help with the tax credit. And then if you are different counties in our state, there's different permitting times. There has been a lot of work to decrease permitting times, but it can take a while. So that can vary depending on your jurisdiction from 2 to 12 months. And then installation is usually about 1 to 4 days. And then your contractor, like I said, will help manage the inspections, interconnection, and interconnection can take about 2 to 3 weeks. After you are interconnected, your system will be producing clean and renewable power from the sunlight falling on your property. And we'll jump right into Q&A. So feel free to put any questions you have in the Q&A box. And so one of the questions is from William in California. And so for PG&E, that is not part of the service area for Energy Trust of Oregon. So those incentives for Energy Trust of Oregon are just available to PGE customers and Pacific Power customers. But you can always check with PG&E to see what, if any, incentives they have right now. I believe in California, you're on net metering 3.0. So just also checking with them on how net metering works because it is a little bit different than how it works here in Oregon currently, are good questions to ask. Thanks for your question. And if you don't have other questions now, you could always reach out to us at info@solaroregon.org.